What's up? It's your boy, the Black Andy Cap. We're back for another episode of These Three Things, and we're talking Buster Faulkner, the new Gator football offensive coordinator. So think about this. What if you could create an OC in a lab, and he was part Mullen, part Steve Spurrier, part Urban Meyer, and part Hank Stram? We might find out, because I think that's what we got in Buster Faulkner, and I love it. I love it. Now, in a previous episode, we talked about Buster Faulkner's power rating. We kind of talked about his offensive philosophy. Now, if you missed that episode, why haven't you subscribed to the channel? Subscribe right now so you don't miss any more content. You'll get notified. You'd have caught that episode. It was great. All right. Now, like the video and jump in the comments. That's key to this. That's what this channel's about. I like the discussion back and forth with college football fans, with the Gator fans. So make sure you jump in the comments. But what we're talking about is Buster Faulkner's interview that he did, again, like I said, on Gator Tales podcast. And so in this interview, it was about 20 minutes long, he gave some clues about what to expect from the Gators offense next season. He also gave us some insight into the QB1 battle that's going on and how he's going to choose who that is. So some very interesting information in that interview. Now, before I jump into my three things, just wanted to give some quick impressions, right? When you listen to an interview like this, you walk away with some general impressions. And so first thing I noticed was that he's excited about this Gator opportunity. He's excited to be here. He's excited to be competing in the SEC. And this is, when you look at his history, this is his biggest job to this point in his career. I'm not saying that to belittle him, just saying, Georgia Tech was a step up. This is a step up to the SEC. It's the SEC. And it's University of Florida. So this is a big time job. First time as being the driver of the offense in this position. Now, he's worked in the SEC before with Georgia. He was an offensive analyst there and worked with the quarterbacks, worked with Stetson Bennett. So, but he's excited to prove who he is. And when I say prove it, it's not like not that he has something to prove. It's more so, I want to show you why I'm here and why I'm the man, okay? Lots of confidence in his ability as OC, and he's ready to show that, and that's what I love, okay? Loves to win. He talked about winning championships at Florida. He meant it. It wasn't just, we're here to win championships. We've heard that. He believes, you can tell he believes he can win a championship here with the pieces he has and his ability to draw up offenses. It's exciting to listen to because you can feel it, all right? For the first time, I feel like in the past few hires, this is somebody who can actually get the job done offensively. Now, there's one thing I did take away that's a little scary to me is he sounds like a head coach. Just the way he talks, his approach, he sounds a lot like John Summerall, so I'm worried. If he starts winning, we got to win this natty quick because there's going to be a lot of people trying to hire this guy soon. So we got to get this natty quick before the money gets too big and he gets his opportunity. So what are my three things? One of my three things that I'm taking away from this interview with Buster Faulkner, all right? Thing number one, he already has his blueprint laid out. It was interesting because Sean Kelly kind of approached him, hey, what's going to be your process? And, you probably haven't figured out what you want to do with this offense. How's that going to evolve? And Buster Faulkner's like, no, I got an idea what I want to do. Okay, I told you he was excited. Buster Faulkner came into this job excited. He says, I have an idea of what I think this offense is going to look like. Okay, so he's coming in ready to ride. One of the first things you're going to pull from the interview, his goal is to score 30 to 35 points every game. He said that, I want to score 30 to 35 points every game. That's strong. Okay, that's real strong. So we talked about, in the intro, I talked about how he's a combination of different Florida coaches, great Florida coaches. That's that Steve Spurrier, right? Steve Spurrier always talked about scoring points. In fact, there's one point in the interview, Kelly had talked about how Gator fans really love offense and how's he going to approach that? And he said, look, I'm just like them. I want to score every time my offense has the football. That's Steve Spurrier. That's Steve Spurrier in a nutshell. Now, I talked about part Mullen, and he talked about this. He said each game is going to look a little different, right? That's Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen always talked. Dan Mullen had the ability to scheme up an offensive game plan that worked. He could always win a game. You always had a chance because he could always come up with a way to beat the other team. And that's what Buster Faulkner is all about. Talked about this in the intro, talked about this in the previous video about his offense. Every week he's looking to exploit weaknesses. So every week the offense could look different. Some games he's gonna run more than he passes. Some games he's gonna pass more than he runs. So it all depends on what the defense is giving him. Now, a couple other interesting things in terms of the offense and his potential blueprint. He talked about the Gators' speed multiple times throughout the interview. You can tell he's hungry to get that speed out there and take the top off. You're gonna get tested. You playing the Gators next season, you better be ready to stop the deep ball because it's coming. He talked about the speed. He didn't say, well, I'm gonna sling it every play. But he talked about that speed. You can tell he can't wait to take advantage of that. So look for that. But the power raid is kind of based on the air raid system, and that's about stretching the field. So he only had one top receiver when he was at Georgia Tech, who's now at Florida, and that was Philo's number one receiver. So that's already built in. If Jones is the starter, that he worked with VB3 and Dallas Wilson. So you've got these relationships built in. But Faulkner's all about this speed, and he sees the potential that's going on. And the last thing about his offensive blueprint is there's buy-in. There's buy-in from the players. He talked about how hungry the players are. And he had a quote I thought was interesting. He said, I couldn't be more pleased with the way they've responded to the way we're going about doing things. All right, so the players are bought in. He talked about how the players are hungry to learn. They're ready to get on the field. They're chomping at the bit. You know why? Because they know they're going to put up points. They know what Buster can do. They're bought in. This is huge. It's huge. Thing number two, offensive position battles. Now, there's been a lot of discussion. At least I've talked about it, and you see a lot of it on the web. People are talking about the QB1 battle that's going on. But there's other battles going on in the big across the board. Something he talks about explicitly. He says every position is up for grabs in this offense. He's about competition. That's where we talked about that combination of Urban Meyer, right? That's very Urban Meyer-esque. Urban Meyer was all about competition within the team, right? You had to compete just to get on the field. And so that made you hungry. Same thing going on here. One of the more interesting position battles he talked about was the offensive line. If you follow this channel, I love to hear that, baby, because that to me that's where the game is won and lost in the trenches, at the offensive and defensive lines. And so he talked about the fact that he's pleased with the number of bodies he has. He says, I got enough bodies out there, but now they've got to go out and earn those positions. Yeah, I've got some guys who started last season, but they got to earn it now. They got to compete for their jobs. And he said he talked about early on, we may have a 10-man rotation at O-line. He wants to see what these guys do once they're on the field and they're standing in front of live fire. So we didn't hear a lot of that from Billy Napier, right? Billy kind of left that to his two offensive line coaches. We never really saw a lot of improvement here. Something to note, okay, and Sean Kelly mentioned it in the interview. Georgia Tech had the fewest sacks allowed last season in college football. So Buster Faulkner is about protecting the quarterback. He's about the power run. These guys are going to have to know how to run block and open up holes. So the offensive line battle is going to be interesting to see. And now I talked about, I may have mentioned this earlier, that he plays to the strengths of his team. That's going to be something I think that's going to benefit the offensive line. He's not going to put them in positions to fail. He's going to play their strengths, so that's going to help them out. Now, the second part of the offensive position battles, yes, he did talk about the QB1 battle, right? That's the one we're all interested in. Who's going to be top dog coming out of the locker room on that first game day? And here's the most important thing I took away from me personally. It doesn't matter. At the end of this, it doesn't matter who wins the QB1 spot. They're going to be good, and the offense is still going to be good no matter whether it's Aaron Philo or it's Tramell Jones, because he talked about, again, playing the strengths. whoever he puts out there, it's going to be the best candidate for the job because they will have competed all off season to get to this position. And once he starts to call plays, it's gonna be to the strengths of whoever that QB1 is. So at the end of it, whoever's QB1, it ain't gonna matter. This offense is still going to be good. It's still gonna put up points. That's just what I believe based on listening to him talk. He knows how to teach this offense to whoever it may potentially be. He's proven that with Stetson Bennett when he was at Georgia. Stetson Bennett talked about how Faulkner was great at translating the offense on the field based on what he saw. So I'm looking at that. He's a QB whisperer of sorts. All right. Now, he did talk about Aaron Philo and Tramell Jones specifically. He talked about their strengths. He talked about Philo, and he said, yeah, Philo's coming in with an advantage because he knows this offense. But he explicitly stated, he said, but he's still competing. He says it's not his job. Okay, now some of the things he likes about Philo knows the system, but we say that, but what does that mean? And he kind of gave some insight into that here. He talked about how Philo is great at pre-snap reads. That's a huge part of this offense, is understanding what you're seeing before you snap the ball, because that affects what play you're going to run. I might have called a pass in the huddle, but when he steps up and makes his reads, he should switch to the run. And so this is something the QB has to do in the system. He talked about how Philo's good at that. He talked about Jones, and he talked about the fact, and I told you this, that Jones was recruited at Georgia Tech, and he recruited him. He talked about Jones's arm talent. He says, hey, this guy has great arm talent, and he's a fast learner. He's been picking up the offense very quickly in the offseason, so the battle is on. But like I said, it ain't going to matter because whoever gets the job is going to be the man. Last thing number 3 to close it out, synergy with Summerall. He's got a good synergy with Summerall, and then one of the first things he talks about this interview is my offense is going to be tough. That's all we hear from John Summerall. It's obvious these guys have worked together in the past. It's obvious their coaching philosophies are the same, and it's obvious to me why John Summerall chose Buster Faulkner. These guys mesh well together. He also talked about his offensive staff, and it was interesting. He did a lot of vetting of everyone on the staff, Trout, all the other coaches. He went back and he checked references, right? He went and got receipts. He talked about calling different people and getting an understanding of who each one of these guys are. So this offensive staff is all on one page. One interesting thing he talked about was that he wanted to be the OC under a defensive head coach. I thought that was interesting. But he talks about about complementary football throughout the interview, and so I think that's where that's coming from. He wants somebody who's going to be able to stop people, right? He knows I can't win this just by scoring points. That's a guy who's thinking about winning a championship, right? We talked about that. But those are my 3 things. Great interview. Check it out. It's on Apple Podcasts and also on YouTube, so check it out. So that's it for this episode. Remember, subscribe, like the video, jump in the comments, tell me what you think. This is your boy Black Andy Cap. Till next episode. Peace.